Hello, welcome back to Financial Lit Storytelling. Today, we're learning about bonds. Let's begin. The story we'll follow is called The Quiet Promise. Noah never expected money to feel heavy. When his grandmother passed, she left him $30,000. It wasn't millions. It wasn't life-changing forever. But it was more money than he had ever held in his hands at once. And suddenly, every decision felt dangerous. He sat at his desk, staring at his laptop. His phone buzzed constantly. "You should put it all in stocks. Crypto is about to explode. Flip it. Double it. Don't waste this chance." Everyone had advice. No one had peace. Noah didn't grow up with financial safety. He grew up watching his parents stress about bills, watching emergencies wipe out savings, watching money disappear as fast as it came. So when this inheritance landed in his life, he didn't feel lucky. He felt afraid. Afraid of losing it. Afraid of messing up. Afraid of proving he wasn't responsible enough to deserve it. That's when he met Miss Alvarez. She had been his grandmother's financial advisor for over 20 years. Calm, soft-spoken, never rushed. She listened as Noah nervously explained his fears. "I don't want to blow this," he said, "but I also don't want to just let it sit." Ms. Alvarez nodded. "Then you're already thinking like an investor," she said. She opened a folder and slid it across the desk. At the top, one word. Bonds. Noah frowned. "Aren't those boring?" She smiled. "They're quiet," she said. "Not boring." She leaned back. "When you buy a stock, you become an owner. When you buy a bond, you become a lender." Noah blinked. "A what?" "A lender. You are loaning money to a government, a city, or a company. In return, they promise to pay you interest and then return your original money at a set date." That sentence changed everything. "So, I'm not guessing?" "No," she said. "You're agreeing." She drew a simple timeline. This is the bond's maturity. That's when you get your original money back. This is the face value, the amount you loaned. And these are your coupon payments, the interest you earn along the way. Noah leaned forward. "So, I know what I'll make?" "Generally, yes." That felt unfamiliar. He was used to chaos, to surprises, to uncertainty. Bonds sounded like something his nervous system had been craving. Ms. Alvarez continued. "Governments issue bonds to build roads, fund schools, and run the country. Cities issue them to improve infrastructure. Companies issue them to grow without giving up ownership." Noah thought about that. Stocks were ownership. Bonds were responsibility. "I get paid just for waiting?" he asked. She smiled. "For trusting." That word stuck. Trust. That night, Noah went home and researched. He learned that bonds come with ratings: AAA, AA, BBB, and lower. These were credit scores for borrowers. The higher the rating, the lower the risk of default. Default. Another new word. Default meant the borrower might fail to pay you back. So bonds aren't risk-free, Noah muttered. No investment was, but he learned that government bonds, especially U.S. Treasury bonds, were considered among the safest investments on Earth. Not exciting, not viral, but reliable. He learned about yield, the real return you earn, especially if you buy bonds at a discount or premium. He learned that bonds don't always trade at face value. Their prices move. That confused him. Why would a loan change in value? He asked out loud. Then he learned about interest rates. If new bonds offer higher interest, older bonds become less attractive, so their prices fall. If new bonds offer lower interest, older bonds become more valuable, so their prices rise. Suddenly, it clicked. Bonds weren't static. They were alive. Just quieter. He invested a small portion of his inheritance into a diversified bond fund. Not everything, just enough to learn. And then he waited. No fireworks, no drama. Just time. A month later, he saw something in his account. Interest payment received. It was small, but it felt different than stock gains. It felt earned, predictable, planned. He realized something. Stocks reward risk. Bonds reward patience. And patience felt safer, more grounded, more like who he wanted to become. Then life tested him. His car broke down. A big repair. Normally, that would have crushed him. But this time, he wasn't panicking. He wasn't selling everything. He wasn't scrambling. He had stability. And that's when Noah realized what bonds really were. Not just financial tools, emotional ones. They reduce anxiety. They reduce chaos. They reduce the need to gamble. They don't promise excitement. They promise continuity. That night, Noah sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how strange it was that something so simple had shifted how he felt. For the first time, his money wasn't shouting at him. It was whispering, slowly, steadily. "I'm here," it seemed to say. "I'm not going anywhere." Weeks passed, then months. Every few months, another interest payment landed in his account. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't something you bragged about. But it kept happening. Again. And again. And again. That's when Ms. Alvarez explained compounding. When you reinvest your bond interest, she said, you start earning interest on your interest. Noah squinted. So my money starts working on top of itself? She nodded, like stacking bricks, slowly, quietly, but forever. He imagined it, tiny payments turning into bigger ones, not overnight, but over years. It didn't feel like gambling. It felt like building. But then she leaned forward. And you need to understand the trade-offs. That word made him nervous. Bonds are safer, she said, but they usually don't grow as fast as stocks. So, slower money? Yes, but slower money tends to last. She explained inflation, how money loses purchasing power over time, how $1 today isn't the same as $1 10 years from now. And this, she said, tapping the table, is one of bonds' biggest weaknesses. Noah frowned. If your bond earns 3%, but inflation is 4%, you're technically losing purchasing power. That felt like betrayal. So, I'm still losing? Not always, but sometimes. Bonds protect stability more than growth. He sat back. So bonds weren't perfect. They were just honest. She told him about interest rate risk, how bond prices fall when rates rise, how if you need to sell early, you might get less than you paid. How is that safe? He asked. They're safe if you hold them to maturity, she said. They're not meant for panic. That word again. Panic. That's what bonds were designed to fight. They weren't for adrenaline. They were for people who wanted to sleep. And that's when it hit him. Bonds weren't about being rich. They were about not being scared. Noah started thinking differently. Instead of asking, "How fast can this grow?" he asked, "How stable can this be?" Instead of chasing upside, he was building a floor. And that changed how he walked through the world. When emergencies came, he didn't collapse. When friends bragged about risky wins, he didn't feel small. When markets dipped, he didn't spiral. Because he had something many people didn't: predictability. One day, he visited his grandmother's old apartment before it was sold. He stood in her kitchen, touching the counter where she used to make tea, and he realized something. She hadn't left him chaos. She'd left him a chance to choose calm. And that's what bonds had taught him. That money doesn't have to scream to be powerful. That wealth doesn't have to rush. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is wait.